Okay. So, welcome everyone. I'm Del Hornbuckle and broadcasting from my home studio here in sunny Fresno. So, this is the first episode of Mini.Futures, a podcast showcasing the amazing past of miniatures and dollhouses, but also looking to the future and where the art and inspiration is going. So, this is a podcast of miniature discovery and highlighting all the miniaturists out there living their passion for miniatures and the wonderful storytelling that comes along with it. So today is a treat. He's my very first guest, and he's a part of a miniature movement that I absolutely love, and we'll get into that. So join me in welcoming Cody Brooks. Cody is a self proclaimed 30-year-old dude that plays with dolls. Cody has been collecting Mattel's infamous Ken doll for 12 years. As the doll community grew on Instagram, Cody decided to start sharing the daily life of his favorite doll, Stovall. In addition to building a fan base of over 12,000 followers, that's pretty impressive. He has combined and shared his design and technical skill with 3D printing to the 1/6 doll world. Welcome, Cody. How are you? And I'm just
Thank you.
excited.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I'm doing well. You said yourself that you were having a sunny day in Fresno. Can't say the same here in Nashville. It is rainy and
Oh,
gloomy
wow.
and cold. So I am definitely envious of your sunny weather that you were having there.
Well, we don't have a real winter here. So, did you get any snow? You ever have any
You know,
snow?
we rarely get snow, but last week we actually had a really good snow. We had about 2 inches of ice and from sleet, and then another 3 or 4 inches of snow on top of that. So it stuck around for a good week. It's finally all gone and cleared up. I enjoyed the snow while we had it, but I'm glad it's gone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's get started. So, tell me about Cody Brooks and how did the miniature bug bite you?
Yeah, so take it way back. When I was a little kid, I used to go and visit my grandparents every summer and winter. My parents would come down because we were originally from Illinois, and my grandparents lived here in Tennessee. So we would come and visit them. And my grandmother actually had a dollhouse shaped shadow box full of little iron metal miniatures. They're highly collectible. Still to this day, you can find them. I actually have them here somewhere in my collection of miniatures. So I was very fascinated by those little miniatures because they were hanging on the wall, and it was one of those things that you couldn't really touch them. You just had to look at them. So that was my very first experience with true miniatures. And then, of course, I was a little boy in the '90s who was not allowed to play with dolls or things of that nature, just due to the fact it was the '90s and it wasn't cool for boys to play with dolls. Dolls were girls' toys. It's a thing we're still trying to break the stereotype of in 2021. Um, so I always was very jealous of my neighbors and other kids in the classrooms who would bring their dolls to school or have them for playtime and whatnot. And um, so then, fast forward quite a few years, on my 18th birthday, excuse me, I was living alone and I saw a commercial or something. I can't remember exactly, but I remember seeing a Barbie and Ken commercial. It was either on TV or on Facebook or something online. And it just brought this flood of emotions from that little boy who just wanted to play with dolls and just couldn't. And I said, you know what? I'm 18 years old. I live in my own place. I'm going to buy myself a doll. So I started researching, um, and I ended up, my first doll I bought was a 1962 Ken doll, still in his box. He still had his wrist tag. He was in brand new condition, never removed from his box or anything, which I still have. And it just blossomed from there. I became this collector of Ken dolls that I've got tons of Ken dolls. So, yeah, it's really been something that has been around for most of my life at this point.
That's awesome. That's great. And what's the origin of Stovall? Like, tell us the story
Ah,
and printed by Stovall. I
well,
just and you'll have to show us your world back there.
let me grab a Stovall. I say a Stovall because I have I have 17 Stovalls. and I know that sounds crazy, and I know people already think that doll collectors are kind of crazy. So let me explain. So this is Stovall,
Love it.
the glorious doll himself, Stovall the doll. This is how you and I met, through Stovall the doll, my Instagram account. So this is Stovall. He's a Ken Fashionista 131.
Yes.
Um, I I bought him at Target. One day I was just strolling through the aisles, just perusing the toy aisle like you do, and I stumbled upon him, and I instantly had a connection with him because he reminds me both of the original 1962 Ken doll that started my collection, but he has this spin to him. He just he represents the world because he's not white, he's not black. He's just he's his own guy. Okay, sorry, I'll put him down. So I just he is perfectly handsome in every way possible, in my opinion. Um, and so so I ended up Mattel no longer makes him. So
Oh, really?
yeah, so Mattel, whenever they make Ken dolls, they make a line. It typically lasts for a year and a half or 2 years, and then they stop production, and then they make a new line. And so I had started this Instagram account all about this one doll. And my first time, I took him on a trip to the beach. Took him, and sand scuffed up his hair. I was like, oh no, I've created this whole account around this one doll. I'm going to have to get more of them because I'm going to break one. I'm going to lose one. His eyeball is going to get scratched off, all the different things. So I've ended up buying 17, and I've got a whole group of friends who every time that they find one somewhere, they buy him and send them to me. So yeah, Stovall, this is him. The name is what typically trips everybody up. They're like, what's Stovall? Why Stovall? Where did you come up with that name? So Stovall is actually my soon-to-be last name. So my name currently is Cody Brooks, but I'm engaged. I'm going to be getting married this September. And
Awesome.
my last
Congratulations.
Thank you. So my name will be Stovall at that point. But I really like it because it's a unique name, and I wanted something that would stand out because Instagram is just flooded with doll accounts at this point. So I needed something to really pull people in and attract them.
Well, let me ask you something. What do you think makes you stand apart? 12,000 followers is pretty impressive. And I just
It's
he is absolutely a fashionista. I think I admire that more than anything. You've got the shoes, the jackets. Looks great.
I do. I've over here. I have an entire closet of clothing for Stovall. Like he has a closet diorama. What makes me stand out? Yeah. So I grew pretty quickly because my account is just over a year old, a year and a
Wow.
few months. So I've had pretty quick success. I think there are a few things that differentiate me from the other Dollstagram accounts. Doll
Oh, I
Instagram.
love that.
It's what we in the doll community call it. It's
Remember that.
Dollstagram. Yeah. So I think the first thing that made me stand out is that my account is a male doll account. So I'm a male doll collector. I don't really collect Barbie. I have a few Barbies. I have an appreciation for Barbie because she started the whole fashion doll industry. But 95% of the doll accounts that you will find on Instagram are all going to be Barbie and pink and just a bunch of stuff that you can go and buy at Walmart or Target, and it's easily acquired. So the first difference was that I'm a guy who is posting pictures of his guy doll. The second thing that really brought a lot of people to my account is whenever I introduced 3D printed miniatures. So I have two 3D printers. So I'm constantly making furniture and accessories and food and things like that I can just print on command. That are different. It's not all pink. So that's another differentiation. And then I'd say the third thing that makes me stand out from the rest of the community is I really have a spark for like mid-century modern design.
Yes.
So a lot of 50s and 60s inspiration in my dioramas and in my collections. So those three things together really help me stand out from the basic pink backdrop that is Barbie Dollstagram.
And talk about the origin of the 3D printing business. Like, how was it already happening, or was it just kind of an offshoot with the furniture, right, and your interest in
Yeah,
mid-century modern?
so I am extremely fascinated by YouTube. So I don't watch TV. I watch YouTube. YouTube is my entertainment source. So I've always just watched completely random things. I watch tutorials on how people repaint dolls, how to make miniatures, uh, everything from makeup tutorials. I don't wear makeup, but so one day I stumbled upon this YouTuber. I wish I could give credit to who it was, but I just can't remember at this point. But it was all about 3D printing, and I just jumped into this whole research hole of 3D printing, and I just surrounded myself with learning all about it, all the different materials, how to 3D model designs, things of that nature. And then I asked my parents for a 3D printer for Christmas. That was Christmas 2019. Yeah. Christmas of 2019, I asked my parents to get me a 3D printer, and they did. They bought me a 3D printer, and I just immediately started designing and printing some mid-century modern stuff, and I started posting it to my Instagram account, and people were loving it, and people started asking me, "Hey, can you make me this? Can you make me that?" Sure. So I started doing commissions just straight off of by request via messages on my Instagram account, and then I eventually branched out, and I have an Etsy store now. So I opened
That's
my
great.
Etsy store on Leap Day last year, and so almost a year in, and I've got like almost 500 sales, and I've
Awesome.
done really well, and it's good because it funds my doll addiction.
That's great. That's really great. Well, what do you wish you'd known? This may not even be relevant, but what do you wish you'd known when getting started and launching this part of the business, which is also your passion? Was there any hard part? What was the hardest part, if so?
um, the hardest part is just getting a handle on like shipping and packaging and stuff like that. I come from a generation. I'm a millennial, so I come from this generation. I had never been to a post office before. You know, um, I everything has been online bill pay. I never had to go to the
And
post
I go
office. So
weekly. I go weekly. See, I'm still the PO box person.
yeah, so learning about the different rates and shipping options at the post office was the biggest thing for me to figure out. But luckily, I made a friend online who quickly showed me the ropes, and now I do even most of that online through a online mailing system. So I still have to go to the post office and drop stuff off, but I don't have to do anything except drop it all off.
Wow, that's great. So tell me more. I grew up with Barbie dolls, and this is decades ago. I'm not a millennial, and I don't know. I think they declined in popularity, but maybe not. I remember years ago. In New York City, a trip to New York City, visiting FAO Schwartz, the famous toy store, and there's an actual wing dedicated to Barbie. It's pretty incredible, actually, and it was just amazing. That's the only way to describe it. So, are you interested in the history of it? Because there's quite a glorious past of Ken and Barbie dolls. I remember having an African American one. I don't. She has a name, but I don't remember. But this is when I was a kid. But talk about the history a little bit. I mean, if people interested in these kinds of dolls and the miniature parts of it, is there a community talking about that? Because it looks like what you may not realize it, but you become quite the collector.
Yeah, so I do find the history of Barbie and Mattel quite fascinating, all the way back to how they stole the original Barbie
Yeah.
concept from a German company. I find
Yeah.
the history of it so fascinating. And as somebody who works in finance for my day job, I find it interesting to look into the history of their sales records and stuff like that. So yeah, like you said, there was a point in time where Barbie took a major dip and went from being one of the best selling toys to quickly being surpassed by other companies who were doing more diverse branding and better quality stuff. The African American Barbie you're talking about, for example, the original Black Barbie was produced in 1980. That's so that Mattel
Yeah.
started in making Barbies in 1959. So I mean, to 1980, that's 21 years of just
Wow.
the basic boring blonde Barbie before they introduced the Black Barbie. And they actually just released last year a 40th anniversary reproduction of the original Black Barbie.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to look
so
for
if
that.
you'll have to look it up. It's slightly different. Of course, it's a reproduction, and it's more so probably inspired. Oh my goodness, so
Uh-oh. That's
sorry.
okay.
Not only do you have dogs, I also have dogs, and my fiance just got home, so sorry for the interruption. But
It's okay.
let's roll back. So that they have created a reproduction 1980 Black Barbie. And so if that is a doll that you originally had, that might be something interesting for you to research and get into.
Absolutely. Well, just add to that, what do you think the competition is? Because I now that I'm on Instagram and you sort of open the window for me, understanding this and the scale, and because traditional miniatures is 112, right? And so you're sort of shifting that to 1/6 scale. And so I know in terms of even your dioramas and everything, it's a different size. The clothing is different. Even when you're doing the 3D printing, the miniatures you're creating, different scale. And I really love that. I love that it's kind of breaking out of the traditional because our world is just that 112. I just love that. But talk about some of the other dolls that I'm seeing. So I'm seeing all sorts of things. I don't have names, but for example, some that are definitely smaller, but with larger heads and bigger eyes.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
There are all
absolutely.
these
So
dolls out there.
yeah, so right now I'd say the biggest competition. Well, let's take it back a few years. It would have been Monster High, which were the freaky fabulous ghouls. So they were like classic, like Frankenstein inspired or
Oh, I see.
Dracula inspired. Those were incredibly popular. I think like 5 years ago. I never got into them. My world has always been Ken. But then nowadays there is so of course Mattel makes Barbie. Their biggest competitor is MGA Entertainment. So right now there is a huge doll line called Rainbow High, which has had
I've seen
extremely
that.
great success, and they are one of the ones with the huge heads and the small bodies. I actually have one right there. That
Oh, I see
guy
it. Yeah.
is a a Rainbow High guy. And the reason that they're being so successful is the amount of detail that they're putting into the clothing and the higher quality hair. Mattel is having a huge problem right now. The biggest issue is the screening. So the facial screening, so the paint, the eyes, the lips, the makeup, and all of that is extremely pixelated right now, and there's a huge problem with
Oh,
that because even the collector dolls, some of these dolls can be $100, $200, and they're coming out looking really pixelated and really poor quality. So that's a huge problem, and then also the Barbie fashionista lines that they're putting out right now. Everything is like printed on fabric.
mm,
Some of it doesn't even have seams, so they've taken Barbie and her amazing historical quality of real buttons and real fabrics, and they have just made it so basic and it's like printed on polyester and just not
yeah.
good at all. So a lot of other companies are swooping in and taking over control. So um, it's a highly competitive market, and if Mattel doesn't turn it around soon, they are gonna quickly lose the lead. on the
Wow,
1/6 scale doll
interesting.
world. Yeah, yeah.
So let me take a moment. This wonderful display studio you have. Show us some of what we're looking at here.
Yeah,
I
so
love it.
I won't move the camera because I know
Okay.
personally it makes me sick whenever I see somebody moving around
Right.
a camera here. You're getting a very small view. This is Stovall's kitchen. So
Oh yes,
it's all 3D printed, all custom by me, including the dishes, the mugs, the bowls,
that's
the
so
plates,
cool.
the oven, the dishwasher, the sink, the refrigerator, anything you can think of. I even have a range hood on top. Um, Over here, we've got Stovall's pink and gray bathroom. It's actually a 100% miniature version of my real life bathroom. I live in a 1956 brick ranch here
Love it.
in Nashville. And the only reason that I agreed to buy this house with my fiance was because of the spectacular pale pink and gray bathroom with the original gray toilet and sink and bathtub. It's fabulous, and I knew I had to recreate it in
Do you have
Stovall's
those
way.
glazed tiles? Does it have
Yes.
the glazed tiles? Yeah.
Yep. That's it. Um, and then over here, you can't see it. There's a dining room. Of course, I've sent you all kinds of pictures, so you'll be able to for people to be able to see those on your blog. Um, Here we've got Stovall's closet. It's a built-in closet full of all of his wonderful clothing. Some of it's custom, some of it is Mattel. Up here, it's kind of barren right now, but it's Stovall's living room with a fireplace. Down
And
here,
that fireplace is iconic. That's what
yes,
is, I'm trying to think of the name of
it's
it.
a
That's a
classic Malm,
yes,
Malm
yes,
fireplace.
yes.
Down here, we've got his office slash workshop. He's got a desk over here, some bookcases, and then he's got his own 3D printing studio with his own miniature 3D printer. And then the bottom down here is just Stovall's bedroom with the classic mid-century modern Broyhill Brasilia line that I fully shrunk down to 1/6 scale. So
Love it. Love
that's
it.
that's most of it. And then there is one other room over here. I've started making a mid-century modern rumpus room. So I
Oh,
just
that's cool.
finished recreating a 1960s pool table as well as a 50s pinball machine in miniature. So that's that's what I'm
Okay.
surrounded by here.
I'm going to have to, you know what? I'm working on Milas Stanley Penderhughes lives in Roland Park. I think you've seen that. And so I just bought, from Made in China, the pool table. And so now that I know, I want something more
Yes.
modern and funky looking.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be talking about that. I was
Absolutely.
absolutely wanting to find one. That's awesome. But I
Yeah,
see at
that'd
the
be great.
top, you've got like a collection there, the things that you
Oh,
maybe haven't opened.
yeah. So my doll collection. So over here we've got these are all reproductions of the original 50s and 60s Barbie and Ken dolls here, and then up above, yes, these are some of the 80s and 90s Ken dolls from the pink box era, as some people like to
Oh,
refer to
yes.
it. But yeah, so I I buy Ken dolls that I like their wardrobes on. And sometimes once I get them and I get them in hand, I'm like, oh, okay, this fashion looks great on this doll in this box, but it would not look great if I opened it and tried to display it on my more modern Ken doll. So when that happens, they get added to the never removed from box shelf up here.
Yeah. Love it. Well, I was thrilled to see one of your Instagram posts. You were using Stovall in your art, obviously, to raise funds for a local LGBTQ charity, which I thought was great. You had the check there. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so in the month of November last year, I was doing a fundraiser where I donated 100% of all of the proceeds of my Etsy shop to a Nashville LGBT homeless shelter called
Awesome.
Launchpad. And we ended up raising $615 in the month of
That's great.
November from all of the sales of my Etsy shop, and just wrote him a check and sent it over.
That's really great. It's really great. What did they think about the inspiration, the dolls? They love that.
So I don't know that the youth who were
Okay.
staying there know exactly where it came from or anything like that. But the board was very impressed and very excited, and they posted about it on their Instagram story and stuff like that. So
Oh, that's
it was
great.
really cool. Yeah,
That's great. So how do you think, I guess Barbie, but obviously Stovall the doll, how do you think they're changing? Just this traditional, again, 1/12 scale traditional miniature community, because I think it is on some level. I think it's definitely pushing the boundaries. I'll give you an example. I think the attention, the detail, and the time that you put into the fashion is absolutely a departure in my mind. For me, for example, working in 112, it's hard to find clothing. It really is. It's just hard to find nice, up to date clothing.
sure. No, so the 1/6 scale doll community is definitely changing the game uh, in many aspects. So, for example, I make 1/6 scale furniture, which is really good because, excuse me, my more detailed furniture I feel like is pushing others to up their quality, and so it's a big competition. So one person sees one person do something and it looks really good, and then that pushes you to, or pushes me to make something even better. But and then also clothing. So much of Stovall's wardrobe, for example, the shirt that
Yes.
he's wearing here, this is actually a 1961, nope, 1962 Mattel shirt. So back in the day, they made really nice clothing, nice shirts.
Yeah.
But then you go and buy a Ken doll off of the rack today, and it's something like this, just a
Yeah.
boring jersey with no real thought put into it. So it's created a whole community of 1/6 scale clothing makers, and
I love it.
the amount of detail that these people put into their work is just phenomenal. For example, so I'll show these off. These are relatively new. These are jeans with
Love it.
actual pockets. So let me see if I can get his thumb in there. So actual pockets, actual belt loops,
Yeah.
real stitching. I mean, great pockets on the back. It's a great modern fit.
And
Um,
the shoes, even your shoes
oh well,
are on
these
point.
these were one of my very first pieces of fan art. I actually had a fan email me through my email address listed on my account, and they said, "Hey, I absolutely love your account." Um, and I had just made a post about being tired of Mattel and Barbie releasing boring, solid white shoes. And she said, I just saw that and I totally agree. And I'm a miniature repainter. I would love to paint a set of shoes and send them to you. And I was like, oh, yeah, that would be awesome. So there's just this whole community of people making such awesome
Love it.
stuff and just pushing each other to go above and beyond. And I mean, Etsy is just a wonderful place for it. I have my Etsy shop. So many of my friends have Etsy shops where they make furniture, they make clothing, or they reroute dolls. That's another term that might only be part of the doll community, but it's where people pull the original hair out of the Barbie and reroute it with a different hair color or a different hairstyle
Oh,
or
wow.
whatnot. Yeah,
Wow.
it's really awesome. It's just it's such an open, accepting community. We
Hmm.
have all different kinds of people who all collect different things, who all
Yeah, I've
do
noticed
different
that.
things and tell different stories. It's the first community I've been a part of where I feel 100% accepted.
Affirm. That's great. Right.
Yeah.
Food. I mean, we can go on and on and on.
Oh,
Some people do food. Some people do landscape art,
yeah,
flowers. It's really quite amazing.
it
It's
really
just,
is.
and you'll hear me talk about this. It's its own. It's more than a hobby now. See, years ago, that's kind of the world that we've come from. We talked about building doll houses, and okay, it's a hobby, and it sits in the garage. But this is an art form. It's speaking to something else, and I just love it. That's really
Yeah,
great.
I think the inclusion of I think it started for me as a hobby
Hmm.
because I was doing or I was collecting Ken dolls and building 1/12 scale dollhouses as a hobby before I started my Instagram account. But I think as people have brought their hobbies to Instagram, it has definitely became more of an art form because it's all about the clothing, the setup of a diorama, the lighting, the placement. It it because you're setting up an art shot. You're taking a picture
Absolutely.
and telling a story, not only with your caption, but also a story through the image itself.
Absolutely. And what's great is you can keep changing, and the more you acquire, it's that you just keep being inspired. That's absolutely, and I'm sure you do that where you're just scrolling through the Instagram posts for hours, just all sorts of things I see. It's just
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
what do you, oh, go ahead. No, please go ahead. Sorry.
It's definitely a never-ending feed. You know, the more people you follow, the more there's on your feed. And so I used to be extremely addicted to my Instagram, and I would scroll through and scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll until I would get to that message that would pop up and say, "Okay, you're all caught up." I follow too many people now, and people are just posting too much amazing content now that I can't even keep up. So
It's
it's
overwhelming. Yeah.
it really is. It really is. You know, and when I started my Instagram, my first year, I made a promise to myself I was going to post every single day for a year straight, and I did it. I completed my first year in September, and I had posted every single day for a year, and I still post almost every single day now. I've missed maybe 4 or 5 days
Wow.
this year.
Wow.
I just it's became such I'm a creature of habit, and it's totally
Yeah.
became a habit. You know, I wake up in the morning, I make myself a cup of coffee, I let the dogs out, and then I come to my little studio here and I start looking around. I pull up Instagram and I start looking at what other people are doing because, you know, there's sometimes people will be hosting events where a specific theme for a certain day. And so I look and see if there's anything going on. If not, then I just come up with an idea in my head and put together a shot. And then, you know, I take probably 50 pictures and pick 3 that are good.
Right. Oh, that's great. Well, what do you enjoy most? Dressing, Stovall, dressing and designing. You know, the clothing, etc. The interiors or the 3D printing. Like, what do you enjoy most of everything? The whole array of what you're doing.
Of all of it together, my favorite is it's either the interior design or the 3D printing. Both are equally fun for me. Um, I love setting up a new diorama. It's just so exciting. I don't have enough space to make a new diorama every single day, or I would, because I love creating dioramas. So when I'm setting up the diorama itself, that's probably my favorite. But once the diorama is built, then I can start 3D printing all these different accessories and furniture to go in it. So it depends on what I'm doing at the time. If I'm creating a diorama, that's my favorite. If the diorama is done and I'm creating the things to go inside of it, that's my favorite.
That's awesome. Well, how did you feel when you got started and you started getting some recognition? I know it was affirming on some level, but what did it push you forward? What did it do for your process, and what was inspiring you, and what you decided to do?
So it was really interesting because I originally was following doll accounts, of course, on my personal Instagram. That's how I discovered it. I was on my personal Instagram. I found an account. Noodlemore was his account, and he was posting pictures of Ken dolls, and I was just like, "Huh, this is really cool." And I became friends with this guy named Cosmo, and we were talking about our collections, and he was like, "Hey, you should really start an account. You're clearly passionate about it, yada yada." I was like, "No, nobody wants to see my dolls. I'll just keep following other people. There's no need for me to introduce my dolls, you know." Um, and then I did, and in the first few months, I had probably a few hundred followers in the first few months, and it was really cool. Um, I never expected anything to blow up like it has. Like my goal was after my first year to have like 1,000 followers. I was like, it would be great to have 1,000 followers after my first year, and I almost had 10,000 at the end of my first year, and I was just like, this is insane because it was like 4 days after my 1 year Instagram anniversary that I hit 10,000 followers. Um, it's really cool to have a bunch of people looking at my art, but it's also intimidating because now I have to worry about
The
impressing
pressure.
10,000 people.
The pressure.
So,
And you have to keep with I was going to say the fashion and those interiors. You have to keep
well, yeah.
pushing it forward.
And let me tell you, at the beginning, Stovall was not a fashionable guy at all. I had one pair of jeans and one t-shirt and one hoodie, and he would go like a month in the same wardrobe before I would change it to another outfit. And he quickly gained a reputation for not being a fashionable doll. So I've only really stepped up the fashion game in the last 6 months or so. Because and people noticed that when I started changing his outfit every single day for every single post and trying not to repeat the same outfit too often, people really commented about it and were like, "Wow, he's really stepped up his fashion game." So that was cool. But I'm trying to think when the moment was that I realized I had gained a decent following. Um, and I really think it was probably in June of last year during Pride Month, because I did an entire month of LGBT history, and it was really cool and really well accepted. Uh, I was getting like posts were like blowing up and people were just loving it.
That's great.
Um, which really, I was so scared because I had never mentioned that I was gay on my Instagram at all, because it wasn't necessary. This was not about me. This was about the doll. And so whenever I started posting about it, I got really scared. My first day, I asked my fiance, I was like, "Is this too far? Should I even be talking about this? Should I just leave it as a very non-political thing? Just leave it out?" And he was like, "No. If you want to do it, do it." So I think that's probably when I first realized the impact I was making, because I was making these posts and then people were commenting like, "Thank you. I had no idea about this. This is horrible. This is terrible. This is amazing." Just people started just it I felt validation, because I was sharing the struggle that the LGBT community has went through for so long and is still going through to this day. Um, so I guess that's probably when I first realized that I was on the map and people were really noticing me.
That's awesome. And it's I always believe that just being your authentic self, look at where it's taking you. Like look at what's happened. Just
Yeah,
being you. I just think that's
absolutely.
great. So who do you admire out there? Is there any
Oh
competition, healthy
my
competition, or
goodness.
who should we take a look at?
Yes. There's a ton of competition. There are
Yeah.
so many amazing doll accounts. So, um, friendly competition. I have to bring this up because Stovall actually has a frenemy.
Okay.
He One of my inspirations for starting my account was Noodlemore. His name is Keith. He's a wonderful guy, and we've developed a great friendship. But he has a doll named Jeremy. So Jeremy and Stovall are always in competition. It all started over this pea green sweater. Started it all because Stovall, for the longest time, wore this green sweater for a long period of time without changing it. And I finally made a post with Stovall not in it, and Noodlemore made a comment about. Anyway, so Noodlemore, wonderful account. Also, mostly male dolls on his account. I've became really good friends with a woman named Ree who lives in California. Her Instagram account is Brune Bell Barbie. Um, she makes wonderful miniatures of all kinds. She and I really connected over the mid-century modern
Mhm.
era of furniture, but she makes just wonderful stuff and she is so creative. Whereas I make everything with my 3D printer, she makes everything. She frequently does Dollar Tree DIYs. She'll go and
Mm.
buy everything that she needs at Dollar Tree. So she makes it super cost effective, super
Oh,
easy
I
to
love
do.
that.
And she has a blog where she does like the whole behind the scenes of how to make everything. She's really great. Um,
That's great.
there's so many people, and there's a woman, Mitten State Barbie. Her name is Julia. She does amazing photography work. and her doll is actually a mini me of her, so it actually looks like her. She's been featured in the New York Times with her doll.
Wow.
There's so many people. I know I'm gonna forget to mention so many people, but it's just everybody is amazing. And you could quickly take a look through my following page on my Instagram and just see tons and tons and tons of super talented artists. My friend Bayard, his account is BF Wolf. He does wonderful repaints. He made some custom Pokemon dolls for me because not only do I love dolls, I also love Pokemon. I have to show you.
Oh, Pokemon. Okay.
This is a
Oh, yeah.
custom Pokemon Ash Ketchum doll. My friend
Wow.
Bayard painted the face to look like the cartoon character. Oh, and then of course I have to talk about the guy who made the outfit.
Look at the
His
clothing.
account,
Yeah.
yeah, his username is Look Style Dolls. He does amazing work. He makes a lot of Stovall's clothing, and the amount of detail that he puts into things is incredible. I could go on and on for hours, and you'd be sick of me. But it is truly art filled, talented void of amazing human beings who all
Yeah, and
love toys.
sharing and supporting each other. Well, that's how
Yes.
when I discovered you on, Instagram, that's exactly what I did. I went and looked at your followers, and I thought, "Oh my goodness." I mean, I kind of had heard about the Barbie dolls, but this is a whole other world, seriously.
Yeah.
That's really impressive, you know. Well, what do you think what one common myth, about miniatures and dolls, and, what do you have to share to dispel it? You've kinda touched on it.
Yeah, I mean, just the biggest misconception is that we're all just a bunch of weird people who are like extreme introverts and don't have a life or don't have a personality, and we're just over here combing the hair of our dolls. And it's not that at all. We're a bunch of people who love this doll that reminds us of our childhood, or maybe for people like me are getting to play with something from our childhood that was taken away from us.
Mhm,
um
mhm, mhm, mhm.
it's it's a whole it's a whole artistic community, and we're not. Some of us are weird. I'll admit I'm not normal. I'm a little weird, and that's okay. I think it's more fun when you're a little weird.
Absolutely.
um but that's the biggest thing. People just assume that because you're a doll collector, you're just this weird person who's gonna have no friends and no life, and that's not true. I have a perfectly normal job. I have friends. I have a fiance. I have a wonderful life. I just happen to love dolls.
Absolutely. 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 Well, what would you change about the hobby or, the art form of the community?
Hmm.
Well, I'll answer. I'll prompt you. So for
Okay.
me, it's exactly what I'm doing. I think, with my blog and, the podcast here, I think dispelling sort of the myth, just what you touched on, that it's the Victorian dollhouse, right?
Mm.
It's sort of only 1/12 scale. It's only, white European dolls that you see, dolls that aren't queer, dolls that aren't, that don't have a great fashion sense, that sort of thing. That's what I would expand it from that.
Yeah. No. Those are great points, because that is exactly what people, when someone thinks of a miniaturist, they think of the old Victorian dollhouses, and it's completely branched out of that. I mean, there are people who, I love my 1/6 scale world, but there are people who do 1/3 scale stuff, which is twice as big as my stuff. For 24-inch dolls, there's smart dolls, there's all kinds of things. Um, if if there's one thing I could change about the doll community is, um, there's still that stigma of it being a female only
Right.
hobby slash lifestyle. People assume Barbie's for girls. I mean, I've got
Right.
my Barbie hat on right now. You know,
Love
I,
it.
it's it's not about it being for boys or for girls. It's for fun. It's for art. It's for humans. anybody can create art. It's just because my muse is a doll does not make it a female art or a female um, hobby. Anybody can play with toys because I'm a big kid at heart. I
Yeah.
just
That's what it's definitely tapping into, no question. And I think
absolutely.
also with dollhouses, dispelling that myth that only girls like dollhouses, and what they're finding now, some studies and even advertising that boys really benefit from playing with dollhouses. Is teaching a little bit about design and planning, architecture, all of the above. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
great.
Absolutely. I
So,
I would have loved to have been able to build dollhouses or play with dollhouses as a kid. It's just not fair.
yeah, you're definitely making up for it.
Absolutely.
What are your final thoughts? Any final words to share?
Um, I my final thoughts would be I'm gonna pay it forward like my friend Cosmo did for me. If there is a person out there who loves dolls and wants to share their or miniatures or anything like that, and if there is something inside of you that you are passionate about that you are afraid to share with the world because you don't think it's good enough or you don't think other people will appreciate it, it's just to put yourself out there and do it, because at the end of the day, if you love it and you put your heart and your work and your passion is present, other people will appreciate it as well. And you just have to do what makes you happy, because when you're happy, other people are going to be happy, and it's going to make your life much better.
Absolutely. Bravo. Thank you very much. Well, that's
Well,
been
thank you for
great.
having me. This has
Yeah.
been wonderful.
Well, this is all the time we have, and so please check out my blog site, miniaturefutures.blog, for my more images of Cody and Stovall's wonderful miniature world, and follow me on Instagram at Crafted Homes Inc. But Cody, very important. Please share all the ways folks can connect with you.
I'm only on Instagram, so you can follow me on Instagram at Stovall the doll. That's Stovall the doll. Or you can support my 3D printing miniature business on Etsy. My shop name is Printed by Stovall, so that's printedbystovall.etsy.com.
Awesome. It's been an absolute pleasure today, Cody. So I'll see you next time, and I will absolutely see you on Instagram. Absolutely love your posts.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.